Well, picture a standard candlestick chart for a moment. You know the one, green and red bars, maybe some wicks sticking out at the top and bottom?
Yeah, a classic trading view.
Right. We look at them to figure out what the market is doing. But the cutting-edge trading data we are diving into today reveals a pretty harsh truth. Looking at candles is basically like looking at a battlefield after the fight is already over.
It really is a striking image. But mechanically speaking, I mean, it's entirely accurate.
Yeah, because the smoke is cleared, the casualties are on the ground, but you have absolutely no idea how the battle actually played out. You are, for all intents and purposes, flying blind.
Exactly. Traditional charts just show you the historical artifact of a transaction. They show you that price was at a certain level, but they completely hide the underlying mechanics of why it moved there.
Right, or even more importantly, what the active participants were doing in the milliseconds right before that move happened.
Which is the most critical part.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. Today, we are taking a stack of really intense source material, a comprehensive masterclass on scalping futures and gold using pure order flow.
Alongside the technical specs for a highly specialized software tool. It's called the NSUS DOM Heatmap MT5V8.
Yeah, so we are going to unlock a hidden layer of the financial markets for you. We're basically giving you X-ray vision to see the actual liquidity terrain underneath the price.
Which, I should add, requires a massive fundamental shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Like, most people approach the market trying to predict the future.
Right, they want to know what happens next.
Yeah, they're constantly asking, well, where's the price going to go?
Yeah.
But true order flow reading, this X-ray vision we are talking about, it abandons the prediction game entirely.
Okay, hold on. I need to wrap my head around this. If we are getting X-ray vision into the market's underlying orders, how does that not help us predict the future? I mean, isn't that the whole point of getting better data?
Well, it helps you react to the present reality rather than guessing a future outcome.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's not about guessing where the market goes. It's about reading, where market participants are structurally forced to act right now. It's looking at the raw mechanics of the auction as it unfolds.
Okay, that makes sense. It's about behavior, not fortune telling. So to really understand how to trade the market this way, you first have to understand the difference between that traditional blindfold view and the new X-ray view.
Right.
Let's physically map out what an order book heat map actually is for you guys listening.
So essentially, an order book heat map takes the depth of market, the DOM.
And the DOM is just that vertical list.
Exactly. It's just a vertical list of all the limit orders waiting to buy or sell at different price levels. What a heat map does is take that vertical list and visualize it over time.
Okay.
In a tool like the NEC XUS MT5, it turns a flat standard trading screen into a live, moving, color-coded map of liquidity.
Let's unpack this visual for you, because if you've only ever seen line charts or candles, I mean, this is wildly different. On a heat map, your price is still on the vertical axis, and time is still moving horizontally left to right.
Right, the basic axes stay the same.
But the actual depth of the order book, like the resting liquidity, is shown by color and brightness. So if there are massive amounts of sell orders stacked at a specific price above the current market, that area will literally glow thick and bright red on your screen.
And conversely, huge buy orders resting below the market, those will glow cyan.
Wow. And then right in the middle of all these horizontal glowing bands, you have the actual executed transactions showing up as circles or bubbles, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the size of the bubble represents the volume of the trade.
So you have the resting, waiting liquidity painted as these glowing walls, and the aggressive real-time market orders basically exploding as bubbles as they hit those walls.
That's a great way to picture it.
No, the NSUS specs specifically mention a microscope mode. Why is that necessary? Are the native zoom functions on these trading platforms really that bad?
Well, they can be, yeah. When you zoom in on a standard chart, the native platform limits often crush the data or just make the scale totally unreadable.
Right.
But when you were trying to read things tick by tick, where a single tick is the minimum price movement possible, those native limits can severely cap your execution precision. The NXUS overlay bypasses this to give you high-definition, micro-level clarity.
Okay, so let me try an analogy here. Trading with standard candles is like looking at footprints in the snow the next morning. You know someone walked there, but you don't know if they were running, walking, or carrying something heavy.
Right, you just see the aftermath.
But looking at a heat map is like having a live weather radar that shows you the actual snowstorm, the temperature drops, and the snowplows moving in real time.
That is a much better way to think about it. You are seeing the weather system as it develops. But here is the catch, and this goes back to your earlier question about predicting the future.
Oh, right.
What's fascinating here is a crucial nuance emphasized in the masterclass text. A heat map does not show you where the market will go.
Because we're only seeing where liquidity is currently displayed, right?
Exactly. We can see how that displayed liquidity reacts when the price actually approaches it. But it is a map of intentions. And, intentions in the market can change in a literal millisecond.
Yeah, people change their minds.
Right. Just because a massive wall of buy orders is displayed doesn't mean it will stay there when the price actually drops down to touch it.
Okay, so if the liquidity on the screen is just a display of intentions, we need to know who is doing the displaying. The source material breaks down the market participants into 3 distinct categories. You have the passives, the aggressives, and the algos.
Yes, the 3 main actors.
Let's start with the passives. These are the ones creating those massive walls of glowing liquidity on the heat map. But wait, if they are the ones laying down the thickest layers of the market, why do we call them passive? I mean, they look like the most dominant players on the board.
Well, they are called passive because they cannot initiate a trade. They use limit orders.
Right.
A limit order basically says, I will only buy at this exact price or better. They do not chase the price. They just sit there and wait for the price to come to them. They are essentially the defensive lines of the market.
Oh, okay. So they provide the structure, but they don't drive the car. That brings us to the second group, the aggressives.
Right. These are the market orders.
Yeah.
When someone hits the buy at market button, they are saying, I want in right now, whatever the current price is.
So they just take whatever is available.
Exactly. In market terminology, they are aggressively crossing the spread to consume the passive sell orders.
Let's define crossing the spread really quickly for you. The spread is just the gap between the highest price a buyer is willing to pay, the bid, and the lowest price a seller is willing to accept, the ask.
Right.
So to make a trade happen instantly, you have to cross that gap and accept the other side's price.
Precisely. And on your heat map, these aggressive participants who cross the spread, they are represented by the bubbles.
The ones that explode against the walls.
Yeah. Green bubbles for aggressive buyers hitting the ask. Red bubbles for aggressive sellers hitting the bid. And this is the fundamental mechanical reality. The aggressives are the only ones who cause immediate price movement.
Which leaves the third group, the algos, the machines. Now, the source describes them as the entities that stack, pull, and spoof orders. But how are they actually doing this?
So algorithms are essentially high-speed mathematical models programmed to manage displayed liquidity. They constantly fragment large orders into thousands of smaller ones.
Okay, to hide their size.
Exactly. They reload orders in milliseconds to hide true size. And most importantly, they create optical illusions with the passive liquidity to probe the market without committing capital.
Wait, how do they do that?
Well, they might flash 500 contracts on the bid for 10 milliseconds just to see if a real aggressive seller steps up. If nobody does, they just cancel the order before it can be filled.
Oh, wow. So price movement is really just a dynamic relationship between these actors. To use an analogy, it sounds less like an immovable object meeting an unstoppable force and more like, I don't know, trying to drain a swimming pool with a bucket while someone else is actively trying to fill it with a high-powered fire hose.
That's a great way to visualize the mechanics. The pool's water level only changes based on who is working harder and who has more capacity.
Right.
In order flow terms, the price only ever moves for 2 reasons. Let's say the price is ticking up. That happens either because the aggressive buyers, the fire hose, are actively consuming all the passive supply at the ask, physically fighting their way up.
Or the price floats up because the passive sellers, the people with the buckets, get scared and withdraw their limit orders, leaving an empty void.
Exactly. It's pure effort and result. In fact, the source calls this the golden rule of order flow, effort versus result.
Effort versus result.
Yeah. The effort is the aggressive market orders, the physical volume and size of those bubbles. The result is the displacement, the actual movement of the price axis.
So if these actors are constantly probing each other, testing the waters with effort versus result, how do they actually lay traps? Because reading the source material, it sounds like absolute psychological warfare out there.
Oh, it is warfare. And the heat map exposes the tactics of that warfare beautifully. Let's look at the specific phenomena you can decode on the screen, starting with liquidity magnets.
Okay.
The text points out that large visible orders mechanically attract the price.
Why does it act like a magnet, though? Is it just a self-fulfilling prophecy because everyone is looking at the same glowing wall?
Partially, yes. But it's also mechanical. Large displayed size naturally attracts algorithms searching for liquidity to fill large institutional orders.
Oh, that makes sense.
It also attracts breakout traders hoping for a violent reaction. And, it often sits right where retail traders.
Okay, but the real trickery comes in with spoofing and pulling. Imagine you're looking at the heat map, the price is dropping, and suddenly a massive, thick cyan band of buy limit orders appears right below the current price. A huge, glowing wall of support.
Right. It influences the behavior of everyone watching.
Yeah.
Retail traders see it and think, oh, massive support, I should buy ahead of that. Aggressive sellers see it and think, well, I don't have enough volume to break through that. I should cover my shorts.
But then what happens?
Then, the moment the price actually ticks down to touch that wall, it vanishes. It's pulled by the algorithm that placed it.
Wow. They basically showed a hand they had no intention of playing, purely to force a reaction from the other participants.
Exactly.
And this is why the masterclass is so adamant about this rule: never, ever trade a wall just because it's big. You have to wait to see if it actually holds upon contact.
Bam.
And when that wall vanishes, it can create what the source calls a vacuum.
Right. A vacuum is a pocket of the order book with absolutely zero passive liquidity.
So when that wall is pulled, there is literally nothing beneath it to catch the falling price.
Nothing at all.
No wonder the source compared a vacuum to driving on a highway without guardrails. You just slip right off the edge. The price just teleports through that empty space because there are no passive limit orders to absorb the aggressive selling.
Which leads us to the exact opposite of vacuum, and arguably, the ultimate trap on the heat map, absorption. This is the pinnacle of order flow reading.
Let's walk through absorption mechanically. Say I'm an aggressive buyer. I see a resistance level, so I throw 500 buy orders at the ask. Normally, that consumes the resting limit orders and the price ticks up. But here, what happens visually on the heat map?
So visually, you are seeing massive green bubbles forming, like huge volume is hitting the market. The effort is at maximum, but the price axis just flatlines.
It just doesn't move.
Right. The result is zero. Why? Because a passive seller is sitting there, quietly absorbing every single market buy order you throw at them.
But wait, how? If I just bought 500 contracts, shouldn't that eat through the wall?
Not if it's an iceberg order.
Ah, an iceberg.
Yes, an iceberg order is exactly what it sounds like. It's an order that only shows a tiny fraction of its true size to the market, hiding the rest under the surface. You buy 50 contracts, the algorithm instantly refills the ask with another 50 in milliseconds.
Wow.
You buy 100 more, it refills 100 more. The buyers exhaust their capital, but the physical ceiling never moves.
The source has a phrase for this that it says should be carved in stone. Aggression without displacement is often an invitation for the inverse trade.
Yes, a very important concept.
So the buyers just exhausted themselves into a brick wall, and when they realize they can't break through, they'll panic, sell to close their positions, and basically drive the price straight down.
Exactly. And this is where a specialized tool like NSEQNS really comes into play. It doesn't just show you the colors. It has specific pulling and stacking visualizers and absorption markers.
Oh, so it flags it for you.
Right. It actively flags these microscopic fakeouts and absorption zones for you. Because honestly, manually tracking a reloading iceberg order is incredibly difficult.
Okay, but surely this weather radar looks fundamentally different depending on the climate you're in, right? Like a spoof on the S&P 500 can't play out exactly the same way as a spoof on gold.
Oh, completely different climates.
Okay.
You cannot trade the S&P 500 the same way you trade gold. The source makes a huge point of emphasizing that the underlying assets have deep personalities, and the liquidity terrain shifts drastically based on what ticker you have open.
Let's break down these personalities. The text starts with the ES, the S&P 500 futures. It calls the ES deep, clean, and institutional. It has thick liquidity, meaning the reactions to those walls are readable.
Because the ES is heavy. It takes a massive amount of aggressive volume to move the ES even a single tick.
So it's deliberate.
Very. When absorption happens, it's very clear. When a level breaks, it's deliberate.
So trading of the ES is like watching a slow, heavy tank battle. The maneuvers are large and calculated. But how does that compare to the NQ, the NASDAQ futures?
Well, the source describes the NQ as nervous and thin. The order book doesn't have nearly the same depth as the ES. That means it is constantly filled with those vacuums we talked about, and it's notorious for fake breakouts.
So a frantic knife fight in a phone booth compared to the tank battle. A wall of liquidity can be pulled, and because the order book is so thin, the price can just teleport 10 ticks before you even register it.
Yeah, it requires significantly wider stop losses and a much faster reaction time to survive.
And then there's gold, the GC ticker. The source gives gold a metallic personality, brilliant, fast, sometimes venomous. It says gold loves stop runs. It reacts violently to news, and it can burn through 5 to 20 ticks instantly in a vacuum. The snake in the grass, basically.
That's a good description.
But wait, if gold suddenly drops 20 ticks in a vacuum, what happens if I try to get out of my trade? Do I get filled at the price I click?
Highly unlikely. That's what we call slippage.
Slippage, right?
Slippage is the difference between the expected price of a trade and the price at which the trade is actually executed. In a thin, highly volatile market like gold, you hit sell at one price, but because there are no passive buyers directly below you, your order just slides down the book and fills at a much worse price.
The text has a great analogy for this. It mentions that trading a deformed spread on gold during a volatile moment is literally like holding a bar of soap in the bathtub.
It really is.
You think you have a grip on your risk and it just shoots out of your hand? How does a trader even keep their footing across these different environments?
Well, the key to keeping your footing is context. The masterclass explicitly states that a heat map alone, without broader context, is just a crystal ball full of pixels.
Or a mirage in a suit and tie, as it warns later.
Right. You cannot just blindly react to a bright color on the screen. You must combine the heat map with session timings. You have to know if you are in the chaotic opening hour, the sleepy midday session, or, the high volume power hour at the close.
That makes total sense.
And you have to combine the micro reading with macroeconomic levels, the previous day's high, the overnight low, big round numbers. The heat map tells you how the market is reacting, but the context tells you where you should even be looking in the first place.
Which brings us to the real core of this entire methodology. If the software is this good, if we have X-ray vision and absorption markers and asset profiles, wait, why do so many traders still lose money?
Yeah, that's the big question.
The source material is brutally honest here. It says the difference between success and failure doesn't come down to the software at all. It comes down to the mindset, and specifically, the quality of the questions the trader asks before clicking a button.
Let's contrast the retail mindset with the professional mindset. The retail trader operates almost entirely on assumption and reaction.
Right.
They see a massive glowing wall on the heat map and immediately assume, oh, that's support, I'll buy. Or they see a giant green bubble of market buys and think, momentum is up, I need to jump in.
So they are just trading the color, not the reaction, like moths to a flame.
Precisely. But the professional trader is asking an entirely different set of questions. When the pro sees that glowing wall, they ask, is this real liquidity or is it decorative? Is it being consumed or is it absorbing the aggression? Who is currently trapped here?
They are looking for the structural vulnerability. And there is an ultimate risk management rule in the masterclass that I think is just brilliant.
Oh, the invalidation point rule.
Yeah. It says if you don't know your exact invalidation point, like the exact specific tick where your reading of the order book is proven wrong, then you don't have a trade, you have an opinion with leverage.
And an opinion with leverage will drain an account very quickly. An invalidation point isn't just an arbitrary number. Retail traders often say, well, I'll risk 5 ticks because that's what my account size can handle.
Right.
The professional places their stop loss exactly behind the structural event. If they buy because they see an iceberg order absorbing selling pressure, their stop goes exactly 1 tick below that iceberg. If the absorption breaks, the whole premise of the trade is instantly invalid.
So how does someone actually train their brain to ask these questions under pressure? Because if you're listening to this right now and thinking, how on earth can a human brain process all these fake outs and pulling and absorption in real time without melting down? Well, you aren't alone. The source material actually addresses this exact problem.
It does. It advises a very specific training routine. First, you should do absorption replays.
What's that?
You load up historical heat map data, but you don't take any simulated trades. You don't click anything. You just sit there and watch the effort versus result battle play out over and over, essentially educating your eye to recognize when aggression is failing to displace price.
Just observation. And the other piece of advice is to trade only one single setup for 20 sessions straight. Just one. Like, only look for failed breakouts. The text says this is necessary to avoid cognitive mush.
Cognitive mush is the perfect term for the overwhelm you just described. Reading pure order flow is incredibly taxing processing work. The masterclass describes the professional trader as someone who is constantly synchronizing 3 distinct mental screens at the exact same time: the map, the engine, and the gearbox.
Let's break down those 3 screens because this is where the whole system comes together. First, you have the map. That is your heat map. It
Yeah.
shows you the history and current landscape of the liquidity, where it is, and if it's being pulled or stacked.
Second, you have the engine, that is the tape, officially known as time and sales.
Okay.
The tape is a scrolling text log of every single aggressive market order that is executed. It tells you exactly who is hitting the gas right now, with what size, and at what speed.
And third, you have the gearbox. That is the DOM, the depth of market. Unlike the heat map, which shows the history, the DOM shows the immediate present structure. It tells you if the spread is currently clean, if the sizes are shifting in this exact millisecond, and if the market transmission can actually handle your trade without that bar of soap and a bathtub slippage.
The map, the engine, and the gearbox. The heat map tells you where the battle is. The tape tells you who is swinging the sword right now. The DOM tells you if you have room to swing yours.
Wow.
If those 3 aren't synchronized in your head, you crash. The tool, whether it's NXUS or anything else, can render the data flawlessly. But the edge, the actual profit, it comes strictly from the human's ability to ask the right questions of that data in real time.
So let's briefly recap this journey for you. We started by taking off the blindfold of traditional candlestick charts and turning on the X-ray vision of the Orderbook Heatmap. We watched the passives and aggressives battle it out mechanically, with the algos playing psychological tricks in the background.
Yeah, we decoded the mechanics of spoofs, magnets, vacuums, and the ultimate trap of an iceberg order absorbing an attack.
We examined the heavy institution weight of the ES, the frantic thin pace of the NQ, and the venomous stop runs and slippage of gold.
And finally, we uncovered the professional mindset, prioritizing macro context, defining exact structural invalidation points, and asking who is trapped rather than just reacting to bright, shiny colors on a screen.
It is a completely different way to perceive value. It's recognizing that the market isn't just a chart moving up and down, it's a live, continuous auction driven by fear, greed, and forced execution.
It really is.
Which leaves us with a final thought to take away from all of this. We learned today that in financial markets, loudly displayed liquidity, like the massive glowing walls designed for everyone to see, is very often just a spoof. It's a trap. It's decorative. Meanwhile, the real intention, the true directional power, is almost always hidden in quiet, relentless absorption beneath the surface. So take a look at the information you consume in your daily life outside of the markets, the daily news, social media outrage, office politics. How much of what is loudly displayed to you is just a spoof designed entirely to force your reaction, while the real aggressive moves are happening quietly in the background.
It really makes you question the tape of your own life. Who is displaying the liquidity and who is quietly absorbing it?
It really does. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the liquidity terrain. Keep questioning the surface level of the information you see, both on the charts and off, and we will see you on the next deep dive.